radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. That's Fission, F-I-S-S-I-O-N, because we live in the age of fission post-Fukushima now. It's time for us to face our reality and embrace it with love and overcome it. And to that end, today our guest is Dr. Sheila Parks. She's a writer and an activist, and I've asked her to come on today to help us understand the importance of activism and taking action. So do I call you Dr. Parks or Sheila?
You call me Sheila, Lonnie. So
well,
glad
thank
to be.
you, Sheila. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Sheila.
So why don't I just plunge in, okay?
Please do, because I know you have some very strong thoughts on this, which is why I asked you to be here. So please, what's the first thing you'd like to impart on the importance of taking action?
So the first thing I'd like to impart is that I am totally against every single nuclear power plant in the world and feel that they have to be all closed now, all closed yesterday. Against nuclear weapons. Back in the 80s, I did a lot of work with the Catholic left against nuclear weapons, and then left that and went on to defend the abortion clinics, actually, and had worked against rigged electronic voting machines and trying to get some voting rights back for the people for 13 years after the crimes of the 2000 presidential election in Florida. And then when Fukushima Daiichi happened in Japan, that just screamed to me in such a way that I came to nuclear power. And I had not worked against nuclear power before. When everybody was at Seabrook, I was, working against nuclear weapons. And what happened the other day when I decided, and I was thinking about what would I talk about here with you, I was at a concert on, I think, 2 weeks ago, Saturday night. And the name of the concert was Sing Out, Fight Back. And in it, they were giving testimony of some of the real things that happened in real life to people in the chorus called our Besser Welt, which is part of Workers' Circle here in Boston. And a woman gave testimony, and it was all about Seabrook. And she said, 40 years ago today, 1,400 of us got arrested at Seabrook. This is the Seabrook nuclear power plant in New Hampshire. And we're all so many civil resistance happened there for so many years. And Paul Gunter from Beyond Nuclear was one of the main people there, as I understand it.
Well, I think a lot of people have forgotten about it. Like there's many, many, many people, most people, I think, don't even remember those times.
Yeah, sad, sad, sad. And most people nowadays are talking about climate change and forgetting about the horrific dangers of nuclear power
Well, you know what always want to inject. I have investigated this, and I don't have, they don't study it, but I really firmly 100% am convinced that the nuclear catastrophe, I don't even call it nuclear power, but the nuclear catastrophe, the bombing, the leaks, the spills, I think it is definitely one of the causes of, quote, global warming, of the climate change that's happening. I think we haven't even acknowledged the billions and tons of radioactivity in our atmosphere, even acknowledged it in a scientific way.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and there is all kinds of evidence to support that. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But let me just talk about, so Saturday night, a few weeks ago, she was talking about, and I was so excited that here was somebody talking about nuclear power instead of climate change, because most people who talk about climate change, nuclear power is invisible to them, whether intentionally or unintentionally. It is like not even on their back burners. It's not even on their burners.
That is so true.
Enraging and baffling to me that it's worse than I have words for. It's so bad that happens. Let me make clear at the beginning of this, though, I am totally on the side of everybody fighting for climate change, against fracking, against all of that stuff, against the DAPL, against coal, oil, gas, fracking, DAPL. And what has to be added to that is coal, oil, nuclear gas. So I'm against all of those. It's not that I'm only against nuclear. But I focus only on nuclear, one, because it's imminent with Fukushima, and two, because everyone else is ignoring it, and three, because it was screaming to my heart to make sure it doesn't happen here. So I was so excited with the woman talking. So what happened is that the police were asking everybody's names, and the 1,400 demonstrators started singing so loud that the police couldn't hear their names, and they dropped all the charges. So I was so excited I didn't get around to videoing it. And so after the ceremony, after the concert was done, I ran over to the woman who had said it, and I said, "Can I please video you now for what you said?" and told her what I just told you. And she said, "It wasn't my experience. It was Jenny Silverman's, who I also know, and who leads the educational part of Workers' Circle here in Boston." So I went to Jenny and I said, "Jenny, I hear this was yours. Can I video you and put it on Facebook?" And she said yes, and I put it on Facebook. And that was the start for me. This was only 2 weeks ago, saying, oh, my God, somebody is really into nuclear power and against it. And then a few days later, came up on my internet was the German anti-nuclear activist who got a prison sentence for
right, I saw that.
Especially in Germany. I mean, Germany is closing down all their nuclear power plants. I don't know what they're doing, arresting her or something like that. Makes no sense. But he and Apodic, and she went to prison rather than pay their fine. Good for her. Good for her. Right. Saying do that. And then there was, very more recently than that, 17 people who were arrested for protesting against nuclear weapons. And they also got arrested. And I thought, oh, finally, people are going out to get arrested against this thing. And that's one of the things I want to talk about majorly here. If nuclear power is as dangerous as those of us who work against it think it is, why aren't we saying we have got to do nonviolent civil resistance, civil disobedience against all the nuclear power plants? And I want to say a few things. Dr. Ian Farley in 2014 had statistically significant figures that said it was found that children who live near nuclear power plants have more incidences of leukemia than children who don't. Now, it seems to me that the minute anybody hears those words, if they care about children at all, their own children and all the children of the world, they would leave the room and say, we better go do something about nuclear power and close them all down now.
I would think not. My sister she lives in Pennsylvania near 3 nuclear power plants, right in the middle of them all. And she will not even hear this. And the fact is, she has 3 autistic grandchildren, which we know nuclear energy causes autism. There's diabetes. There's yes, the first before cancer, Dr. Goffman. I mean, the road to cancer is long and sick. You get diabetes first, you get schizophrenia, you get autism, you get skin diseases, endocrine problems. Those are very common when you're exposed to radioactive contamination.
So your sister doesn't believe it's a nuclear power plant at
Well,
all.
she's like, well, there's not much I can do about it. What am I gonna do? Like, I have to live here. Like, she's like, I'm not giving up my house. I'm like, really? I was, but this
It's
is where
okay.
people have been invested. And the reality is they're in the thick of it. And this, I don't know if you know this, Sheila, but in the United States, our nuclear facilities do not warn its community when they're going to do its annual cleaning. In the United States, instead of sending out a notice and saying, "Hey, we're going to be releasing high levels of radioactivity. Keep your kids and animals in for the next 2 weeks." That's what they do in Europe. Here in the United States, they don't warn anybody and they aggregate the exposure throughout the whole year. So instead of warning people that there's a 2 to 3 week period when you're at a high risk of being very exposed, they don't say anything and just let people get exposed.
I believe every word of that. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission here is a shill for the nuclear energy power people, and they don't care about we the people at all. In fact, I recently testified in front of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission here in Massachusetts. Two things. One is they had these were two open meetings. They knew what they were going to do before they had the open meetings. So that's, the sham of that. But when I gave the statistic, I had asked this guy, what's his first name, John. I had asked somebody who had written a memo that got linked to to us rather than to the people he was sending to privately if he had ever heard what I just told you. No, he hadn't. And when I gave that same statistic to the whole committee, they were writing it down because they hadn't even heard it. They don't even know anything about how bad nuclear power is. But your sister and the NRC and all the other people, it's just like the psychic numbing and denial. Nobody wants to hear it because the news is so bad.
Well, they really are like battered wives. They don't want to leave their abuser because they don't know what it's going to be like outside of it. They have been brainwashed to believe that they need them. They need the abuser. So they're going to stick with it. I mean, you've heard that term gaslighting. This country has been severely gaslit, and we're in the thick of it, and we're on the front line of helping people, like get their courage to leave the abuser. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I consider it. We're the hotline for people.
Yeah, and it's very hard for people to leave. So another statistic that I want people to hear is by, preeminent, acclaimed international pediatrician and someone who has worked against nuclear power and nuclear weapons for at least 42 years is Dr. Helen Caldicott, who I love and adore, and the founder of Physicians for Social Responsibility. So her figures say, she says children are 10 to 20 times more vulnerable to the carcinogenic effects of radiation than adults. Little girls are twice as sensitive as little boys, and women are more sensitive than men. Fetuses are thousands of times more sensitive, and she calls nuclear power plants cancer factories, which they are. How can you not hear these kinds of words and say, I have to pay attention and protect my children? Timothy Mousseau in 2014 also found that in Chernobyl and Fukushima that the radiation affected plants, birds, and butterflies. So we're affecting the entire life chain on the planet with this nuclear power. So I want to suggest three things that people can do. I'm tired of click send, click send, click send. It doesn't do any good as far as I can see. Or if it does, it doesn't do much good. We just won some victory over some click sends, but I can't remember what it is. So one, I want to urge people to become organic vegans because vegans have the lowest carbon footprint on the planet. And you're helping everything. It's helping stop nuclear power, the coal, the oil, the gas, the fracking, everything. And if life on this planet means anything to you, if your children mean anything to you, it's a simple thing to do. I've been a vegetarian, an organic vegetarian for 40 years, and I don't say it's simple, but it was hard for me. I walked away from meat and chicken and fish and never touched them again for 40 years and never looked back. In and out of vegan because it was hard for me to do, and I missed and sometimes and still do crave cheese, yogurt, kefir, even eggs. But after Fukushima, all the people that I trusted in the know said, you must become a vegan. All the grass is radioactive. The cows are eating it all. And it's true that all our vegetables and stuff and fruits are planted there, all the plant stuff, but you must become a vegan. So I did. So I became an organic vegan 5 or 6 years ago. And it's hard for me. So it gives me more empathy for the people who have a hard time. But do it anyhow. The other thing...
And keep doing it. Like, that's the thing. Don't give up on it. It's a hard habit to break. My daughter's a committed vegan, and I keep going back and forth between meat, no meat. But you know what? I know it's an addiction. It really is an addiction. I really believe that it's kind of a cycle of addiction. It's a psychological addiction. And so, but this is my attitude. I'm going to keep at it. I mean, I'm making another go at it again. I agree with you completely. I know it is something that we just have to like choose that we're going to do. And there's no shame and no guilt in it. But the fact is, it's kind of like when, to me, it's the whole processed food industry. To me, it's more like a political statement. It's like we're rejecting the war machine because the war machine is built on the industrial food machine. So it's a way to really walk through that and take an action in your daily life. Like just cut that off at the knees.
Right. And the point is, it's up to us. Like, I don't have to depend anymore on, like, I'll write to Senator Markey. I'll get back to him. I'll call Charlie Baker, the governor of Mass. I know Goodnick. I don't have to do any of that. I don't have to depend on them to get rid of nuclear forming. If I become an organic vegan, and I say organic because you've just got to go organic because they're killing us with their GMOs and everything else. And if you're vegan, it's not too expensive because you're not buying meat, fish, or chicken, or cheese, or all the expensive things anymore. Even if you go organic, you will find your food bills are going down. So it's something that I can take.
And the other thing is for men really need to go organic because this is why men have hormonal reactions because they're Dr. Linda Richter Page. I learned this from her. Men are especially sensitive to GMOs and hormones and in food. So when they cut their hormone, this is why they have to take those pills, to have sex because their hormones are so low. But if they would just go completely organic, their bodies will find their own normal hormone level because men don't really, throughout history, men haven't needed pills to have sex. That's ridiculous. They need that because their hormones are being suppressed by the GMOs. So if that's an incentive to men out there to get on the organic gravy train, I bring that up because it's essential that you go organic as much as possible.
Yeah, and so I buy most of my food from organic farmers, local organic and local farmers. I mean, it's such a good feeling. I've been very bad about that the last year or so because it's just been hard to do. They used to deliver it to my door in the winter. These were, I just love these people. And there are organic farms.
There's what do they call them? Community service associations, and people can look those up. CSAs. Just Google it in your area. CSA in my area, and those are the farmers that organize together. And here, like in Eugene, they will deliver your food. I mean, it's a really inexpensive. There's alternative ways for us to do this outside of buying into the program that we've been rubber stamped into accepting.
Right, and in the farmers that I was buying from, it wasn't even CSAs. You could buy any amount you wanted every week. It was just amazing. It is just amazing. I mean, it's just amazing, and they're everywhere. And so, look into it. Do what Lonnie just said, and look into that, folks. And say that by the way, there are additives in cheese. That's been written about that. There are additives in cheese to make you crave it. The other stuff, the meat, the chicken, fish, I don't know because I haven't had it for 40 years, and I'm
sure there is. But even the issue about cheese is cheese and beef. I mean, the problem with cheese is that it's more radioactive. It does have a higher concentration of radioactive nuclides because it's a dairy product, and dairy absorbs the cheese because the cows eat so much of the contaminated food. Like they have so much, it's just an exponential growth. This is why we need to stop eating fish because the fish magnetizes cesium-137 times 1,000. So there's 1,000 times.
No, go ahead.
Well, there's a Dr. um, Goffman said this in his book that I read, that fish, because there's no potassium in the ocean, they magnetize the potassium 1,000 times. And when they see the cesium-137, any of those ones that end with IUM, that whole family of train of isotopes, they also magnetize that 1,000 times. So this is why fish is especially detrimental to human health post Fukushima. But let's talk about this, because the food is a way of being an activist. This is really kind of a subtle way of moving yourself into taking action at a personal level, and then expanding that out.
Yeah, that has an international good consequence. A really good consequence of all the energy we're using going down. Remember, everybody, vegans have the lowest carbon footprint on the planet. I'll get later, and Lonnie already talked about it a little, about nuclear has a huge carbon footprint and a huge other footprint. I also wanted to say, though, that, oh, God, it just slipped my mind about the food. I'll get back to it. The other thing I want to say that we have to do, and I have been wanting to do, the ocean and the fish. There's not 7 oceans. There's one ocean. If you look at a map, you will see that all the oceans of the world are interconnected. So the Fukushima water that is still having all these tons of radiated water go into our ocean, it's one ocean. So whatever you eat from the ocean, seaweed, get off the seaweed, get off any.
Oh dear, I think we disconnected from her. I just heard it click off. Let me give her a call right back. She was right in the middle of this. Let me see if I can give her a call. Hold on, you guys. But she's right.
This is Dr. Sheila Parks. Please leave a message.
Hold on, we'll hang up. We'll hang up. We'll call her again. Hold on. She probably has not realized that we got disconnected.
This is Dr. Sheila Parks. Please leave a message.
Okay, so we have to be a little bit patient here. Hang on. I'm sending her a text message that I'm calling her again. So hold on, folks. Technology, here she is. Yay. She called us back. Sheila? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You dropped off there for a second. Thank you. Thanks for calling back.
Oh, yes. So I want to talk now about divestment. We have got to start finding out what banks, what financial outlets, what financial institutions, what people, what corporations invest their money in nuclear power, and we have got to do a divestment thing, just like has been done against the DAPL banks, just like we need to start that. I've been wanting to do that for a couple of years now, and I haven't. I do the research and then I stop. I do the research and stop. So if anybody wants to start doing research to find out where nuclear power is invested, we need to do that right now and have a big campaign against them. That's, once again, people.
Well, the biggest investor is the United States, I'm sure.
You think it's
this is the thing. You mean, where do they keep their money? Where are they banking?
Where are they banking it, and who else is putting money into it? Other places must be putting money into it besides the government.
Yeah, well, lots of them are putting in money involved in it, I'm sure. I mean, there's they have all these, but you mean, I think the biggest thing about divestment is just like, don't buy their stock, which is easy to do. When Donald Trump won, the nuclear stocks went right off the charts. Did you know that? They knew he was going to.
Lonnie, you know them already? What's the name?
Well, Cameco Corporation was a stock, and on the market it's CCJ. That's Cameco, CAMECO, and it's the largest producer of heavy metal. It's a Canadian company, but they're on the market. Exelon, of course, we all know about Exelon, and BWX Technology. Let's see, they build heavy nuclear component. They're a heavy nuclear component. These are people that actually build the nuclear industry. But, we can look around. We know for a fact that McDonald's, grows a portion of their potatoes. There's farmers out there that sell to McDonald's out in Hanford. I mean, it's very interesting to see where the food farmers are in relation to the nuclear power industries. I mean, this is my kind of shock. Like these farmers in America, they have been sold a bill of goods. If they knew what radioactivity has done to their lands, they would be up in arms.
That's the other thing. The corporate media either doesn't print anything or prints lies about nuclear power and the dangers. There's nothing that doesn't have some kind of lie or disinformation in it.
Well, they don't ever report on it. Did we hear anything about Hanford, which is a huge threat? Hanford is still not safe today, right now.
I asked my writing, you know, anything about nuclear power. If I didn't, you know, bring in all my writings, no, they would never know a word about it. You know, here and there, the Globe writes something with always a mistake in it. Yeah, mistake. So the other thing I want to talk about, though, is nonviolent civil resistance, civil disobedience. My first experience was that I was a college professor, and I had a spiritual awakening, which led me to leave my career. I didn't want to live my life doing that, and I just walked out the door and became very involved in fights against nuclear weapons. I don't know how that happened. It wasn't a plan, but that's how my life unfolded. And I
think I get that one completely.
And I got involved with Haley House, which is a local Catholic worker house. And I don't know how. I mean, I have two friends in it, and maybe I can't remember whether I told them about Haley House or they told me. Anyhow, Mary Jane Rosati and Deidre Duran. So I joined. There was a group called Atlantis that met at Haley House every Sunday night. We met there every Sunday night. And there were not only Catholics there. I'm Jewish. There were many Quakers. There were people from all faiths. And then we did a vigil every Monday morning, every single week, for many years at Draper Weapons Laboratory in Cambridge, Mass. That made first-strike nuclear weapons. And from there, I was introduced to Liz McAllister and Phil and Dan Berrigan. They became famous when they napalmed the draft cards in King of Prussia against the Vietnam War. I don't know how old anybody is that's listening, but look up the Berrigan brothers and Liz McAllister. And they were big, big teachers of mine. And they said, bring the struggle to the streets. And that has been in my mind all of these many years, that 40 years, bring the struggle to the streets.
Well, this is what Kevin Blanche and I attempted to do with the Post-Ignorance Project. And this is what was the sad part. This is why Kevin is sort of bitter and angry. He gets very upset about it still. He would be posting videos. We'd plan for him to say, go to, like he went to Sister Megan Rice, Sister Megan Rice, who was thrown in jail. You know hers? Yeah. Well, he went to her. We had him fly out there and go to her event. And there were people online that said, yeah, we're going to come out and support her. Nobody showed up. Nobody showed up. Yes, nobody shows up in the street. People don't show up. And yet they'll go out for climate change, but they won't show up for, you talk about the disconnect between nuclear and climate. This is why I say we have to become the policy entrepreneurs. We have to frame the message ourselves. We have to have a hand in framing the message. And the message is nuclear catastrophe. The nuclear industry has had a large role in global climate change, period. That's unequivocal. We have not even tested it, but it's very obvious. The amount of nitric acid that gets thrown out every year, 1,850,000 becquerels, a ratio of gas each second. I mean, it is outrageous. Jeremy Rifkin, the writer, he wrote about this in his climate books. But you know why it gets glossed over? Because the nuclear industry pays people like National Resource Defense Fund, 350.org, USA Greenpeace. They give them, if you look at their 990 forums, Sheila, they get $11 million contributions, $10 million, and they don't have to disclose it to us anymore. That was erased. So they no longer have to tell us.
Lori Morningstar writes about that a lot, and I suggest that everybody read her. Just Google her and read her.
What's her name? Tell me her name again.
Corey, Corey Morningstar. I love her last name.
You know what's really interesting? What you were involved. This is the interesting thing that I was not aware of. Like you know all these names from the original anti-nuke movement. You remember them. You were there. You were part of it, and they have successfully snuffed all of that out. People they don't remember protest songs. They don't remember. Like I was a friend of mine actually helped stop Trojan here in Oregon, and I said, "Don't you know any protest songs you can?" He's like, you can teach me. He's like, I don't remember any of them. Because
Wow.
I believe in singing. Like I stand out on the street corner and sing that song. You know that protest song that actually helped cause the uprising all throughout Europe with the banking system. That one that's like we're on a planet that has a problem. Have you heard of that? It's a
Yes, I
really
know.
fat.
Yes,
You do know that song, right?
I
That's
sang
an old
that at
song.
Corral Sunday when I was there. So I went to another thing. Yes, Sunday I was crying, with my tears running down my face at both of these concerts, all doing fight back songs, including the one you're singing.
That's a great phrase. I didn't know that phrase. Fight back songs.
And then there's the other connection that what these people do is take the plutonium that's made out of nuclear reactors, nuclear power plants, and use it for making nuclear weapons.
That's the
So,
point of these power plants. Let's be clear. It has nothing to do with energy. I mean, the investment for 20% energy, you're ridiculous. They're getting something else out of it. Murder, death, kill.
so let
I
me
mean,
talk a little bit about my own story about getting arrested. I
please.
In 1982, there was this million, they were aiming for a million-person march against nuclear weapons in New York City. And I went with an affinity group from Women's Pentagon Action. And there were so many people there at that march. There was no march. We just sat in the street and laughed and cried and were so happy about the millions of people that came to that to stop nuclear weapons. This was the next day. Casper Weinberger said, "I don't care how many people march as long as they pay their income tax." That's another whole story. So anyhow, on Sunday it must have been everybody 1 million plus people marched. And on Monday, 1,000, you can see how the figures go down, of us did nonviolent civil resistance and got arrested, including me.
1,000 is a lot. What'd you do?
I don't remember what we did. Can you remember? I don't remember. I never even thought. I have no idea what we did. We must have crossed some kind of line with the United Stations. And I don't even, I'll call one of the
That's
women from
hilarious.
Pentagon. I have no idea what we did. But that's really funny that I have no idea what we did. And it was my first one. Remember, I was terrified of everything,
Wow.
of getting arrested, of having a record, of I don't even know what I was terrified.
Did you
But my
know that you were going to get arrested? Did you go there with the intention of being arrested?
we were risking arrest is what it's called, and usually you
Uh-huh.
get arrested. Yeah, usually you get arrested, and they were,
Have you
the
have you
powers
been
that.
arrested since then?
Oh yeah, you don't know that? Oh
No.
wait,
How many times?
I have a very deep story. I have a very, very. Wait, let me tell you this. So they arrest us, and I'm sitting on the bus waiting for whatever's going to happen. And some reporter sticks their head in the window and says, "How do you feel?" And I said, "Well, it was the first time I ever got arrested, and it's the proudest day of my life, and I feel wonderful," which was true. I had finally crossed that line. I was living up to the courage of my convictions. I had done it. So they drive us in this, I don't know, there probably were a lot of buses. 1,000 people got arrested. And then at the police station, and I'm really hyperventilating. I'm scared. And I don't know very well the people in my affinity group. I mean, I don't know them at all. I was glad to be doing it with all women. I had left an affinity group that was being led by this authoritarian white minister. And I called headquarters and I said, "Get me out of there. I need an all-women's group." And they did put me in one, thank God. And remember, it's my first time, so I don't know any of the people who have been doing civil resistance. I got to know them fast after that. And so they take us down. It felt like I was going into the netherworld, down this. I can still remember that to this day. This swirling staircase going down, 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 down. Anyhow, and then we went to court, and I loved going to court that night. This was all the same day. I just loved it. It was my first experience of, quote, speaking truth to power. I loved it. I just loved it. And that was the beginning of my getting arrested, by risking arrest.
Did
I
you
went.
feel like you were being a real American by doing this? That this was like the point of being an American? I mean, did you have a sense of patriotism or standing up for the earth or for like,
More the
speaking
earth,
truth to power?
more standing up for the earth, standing up for what I believed in, standing up against what I really couldn't tolerate anymore. It wasn't about being an American at all, no. But it was about being my own person, and as I said, having the courage of my conviction and saying, if I don't do this, I can never look in the mirror again because this is what I believed in. And it was really started by, I mean, when I used to think about Liz and Phil and Dan and the rest of the people, Liz didn't do the burning of the napalm. I used to salivate. I used to want to be with him. Little did I know they were going to become my friends. Who knew? It unfolded, And so because Catholic Worker in Boston was very friendly with Jonah House, I got to go to Jonah House and meet all those people and become part of the so-called Catholic left, only not so Catholic. I mean, Catholic. I begin to think, I don't know, I ask myself all this time, is it the faith that makes a lot of people do the civil resistance, or is it secular people too? And I don't know the answer to it.
Oh, it is secular people, because I guess I'm considered a secular person. And I am driven by my connection to, I personally don't believe that we're separate. I have a very Eastern attitude towards life. Like, I think we're part of Earth. I think we are not separated from it. I believe that is God. Like, everything is God. And everything has value. Everything ought to be honored. I mean, we're clearly on the wrong path. It's obvious. I mean, right now we have a Republican Congress who wants to cut benefits to the poorest people in our country. A lady got a letter from her congressperson who said, your child who has diabetes, can't you use your own money to spend for her $2,000 a month medicine? Even though the fact is, and diabetes, you get what I'm saying? I would look exactly, where does that child live and where is a nuclear facility or has been a nuclear accident? Because children...
Immoral.
See, you know what? This is the thing. It is beyond... They have used the way they did this industrial military, the whole complex, the food system, the medical system, the nuclear, it's all kind of revolves, the chemicals, it was all kind of cooked up all around the same time, the geoengineering, it's all cooked up around the same time so that it's a win-win for them, lose-lose for us. They destroy our food supply. They disallow us from knowing the ancient arts of true healing. They destroy our earth and our ground. They put chemicals in it. They make us sick. We have to buy their medical insurance or participate in their industrial medical industry where a child with diabetes at 10 should not be taking $2,000 worth of medication. Diabetes can be resolved through health. I've seen it happen. You don't have to
medicine, Lonnie. I take no Western medicine. None. I do homeopathy. Need to. I go to an MD homeopath. I studied homeopathy myself for 20 years, and this
is the thing. We are on the wrong track, and it's showing. And so, at what point, Sheila? This is why you're talking about your experience. It invigorated you in your youth to stay active, to be part of it, and your actions mattered. You guys actually did stop them and push back. But you know what happened? The same group of, I don't know how active you've been, but my friend Peter was on that train of people who really did stop them. When Fukushima happened and I found out about it in 2012, I called him up and said, wow. He's like, oh, I've done that. It's up to the young people now to do their job. And I'm like, are you kidding me? They don't even understand what they're up against. You at least do. They're being told right now at school that in fact, a young person, I guess he was 38. He's like, you're not fear-mongering, are you? And I'm like, look, just because this makes you feel afraid doesn't mean I'm fear-mongering. We are under serious assault here. We need to get hit, man. We have got to figure it out and face it.
Yeah, no, I'm doing this 40 years. 40 years I've been an organizer and writer, and I love it. It's, I was born to do this. I feel called to do it. It was so interesting. A couple of years ago in my life, two women who didn't even know each other said to me, Sheila, you've just been called to do this work and just keep on doing it. And it was so
You know
heavy.
what's interesting, Sheila, is it's women. It's a lot of women. Where are the men? How many men do you know that actively engage in your area?
I know women more than men. Women do it. Women are not always the activists, and men always have the mic. Is how I say it. Men are always white men.
Well, you know what? This is the thing. The policy framing is being done by men. Let's be clear. I mean, it is the men who are telling us what to do in terms of the nuclear. That's why we have nuclear. So, where are they? This is why I like Kevin Blanche, because he was out. Kevin Blanche unequivocally calls it what it is. It's a murderous industry. He was a victim himself. He's fighting cancer. He just went through heart surgery. He's only like 57. I mean, he survived his cancer. His dad was a nuclear veteran and died. I mean, his family, they all have medical issues because they live in Utah, what's that called? Salt Lake City, near that area, So all the people in the Midwest have just been contaminated.
Everything is contaminated. There's no such thing anymore as safe food, safe soil, safe water. There's only safer.
That's why the name of this show is called The Age of Fission, because guess what? We're living in it. But that doesn't mean we can't figure out solutions. I mean, actually, I think it's the opposite of that. Not can't. We have an obligation to face it. As adults, we have to be responsible parties and look at it and say, okay, we screwed up. We really bought the farm on this one, but this is where we're at.
Bonnie, so let me get back to the civil resistance. So,
please.
For me, it's not only the white men in the government, it's the white men in the so-called left who have to get rid of their misogyny and their white supremacy and look at their white and male gender privileges and give up the mics and give up the policy making and give up all the junk that goes with their two privileges. That's the so-called left I'm talking about. Anyhow, this is, Charlie Baker is the governor of Massachusetts. He has been asked, yelled at, screamed, delivered petitions to, phone calls, faxes, emails, sit-ins in his office, everything. He makes no move to close Pilgrim now. Nothing. And Pilgrim is in the worst category of nuclear power plants in the country.
Yeah.
There are two Democrats running against him, thank God. And they both are known for being for renewables. But if you are for renewables and not against nuclear power, that's an oxymoron. That was Bernie Sanders, who people loved. I didn't love him. He talked about renewables, but he didn't. He talked about closing nuclear power plants, having a moratorium when their license, expire. For some people, that was 30 years from now. What kind of plan was that, Bernie Sanders? I won't even go near Hillary. Hers was worse. So it's time to get rid of Charlie Baker, who for 2 years was known as or voted as or something as the most popular governor in the country. Pretty scary. So in Massachusetts, we have a chance to do something. Ed.D, Democrat, who had a town meeting a few weeks ago down at the Cape, where Plymouth is at, in Plymouth, Mass, in the Manamet region, and there are cancer clusters there that are highest in the state. Of course, you were talking about that before. I don't even buy anything anymore if I look it up and see if it's near a nuclear power plant. Anyhow,
Good for you.
So Markey talked about, he said, he's built his career on, and then he changed it fast to, I've done my service. Now, he is the hit person on energy in the Democratic Party for many, many, many decades, and it was while the Democrats had the White House, the Senate, the House, etc. Never once did he ever say close nuclear power plants now. And now when he is also being inundated by people in Massachusetts, he has never said close Pilgrim now. He says, well, if they don't, they have to do this. And Elizabeth Warren, who I love and adore, she got a little bit stronger the last time there was a meeting, sending one of her aides, but she hasn't said close Pilgrim now either.
They are scared to death because the nuclear industry has so much money to kill candidates. It's unbelievable.
And whereas Markey was the hit person, he was the major energy person in the, when the Dems said everything. What are we going to expect from him? He's not going to do anything. But I would like to see people all over the country, the same way that the people who voted for Trump and everybody else, who was very, very mad at the Republican senators and House reps going into their town meetings and raising Cain. I want us to go and do nonviolent civil resistance in the offices of all the federal senators on the same day.
What day?
I don't know. I've got to think about that with somebody.
Okay, well, let's announce it. Why don't you do that? Because I'll participate. I'll go to my local congressman's office, Pete DeFazio's office, and make a statement. There's 2 or 3 people I know here that might go with me. We could even have it filmed and photographed.
Yeah, it has to be filmed and photographed. And if you don't have a nuclear power plant in your state, it doesn't matter. I mean, the people in Oregon can go to Washington State where Columbia generates.
No, we can still go to, we do have nuclear. Look, right here in our state, they are attempting to pass. We voted against nuclear power. In our state right now, sitting on the desk at a Democrat's, and I encourage any Oregonian to call her office and tell her to kill this bill 990. It's sitting on Tina Kotek's desk.
Okay, and I would love to sit in Ron Wyden's office. He thinks he's so liberal. Let's see what happens when he has to say, close all the nuclear power plants now.
Well, you know what? It's time that we start this. I mean, there's only one thing that we can do, and that's just start going to their offices and making, being seen about it. We need to go to their offices if we can do that. I think that's a great idea. And that's a good idea. Thank you for reminding me of that. I hadn't actually even thought of that. I've been doing this like how long? I mean, just go to his office and say, because I call him, I know that they're fundamentally, they don't like nuclear power. We don't like it in this state. I mean, this is the interesting thing. We're not a pro-nuclear state in Oregon. People are outraged by it, in fact.
Well, but if we go in and sit in their offices, let's see what they do. It's nonviolent. It's living up to our strongest beliefs. It's living up to the courage of our convictions. I used to be a Marxist. I was a former Marxist. And then when I had the spiritual awakening, I bumped into Gandhi, and I said, oh. So I became a pacifist. And I did, with the Catholic left, 7 years of nonviolent civil resistance around New England and D.C. We went and we got arrested. We did all kinds of nonviolent resistance. And then we talked about Megan Rice. I did a plowshares action, which landed me in prison for a year.
Yeah, she was actually in prison for a couple of years. I mean, 83 years old. She didn't get out till she was 85. And
age. I used to get mad when I used to say, "Oh, free her, she's old." It doesn't matter the age. It's just that people do this. And Greg Borchi, who was one of the people who did the civil disobedience with Meg Reagan, was part of the group that we did when we did it against Trident II in Rhode Island. And there are worse things. I mean, prison is not such a fun place to be, but when we think of mass...
Well, I will tell you this, though, Sheila. We have to remember this is not the prison system of 40 years ago. The whole system now, since the Unpatriot Act and the NDAA, is a gulag. Let's be very clear.
That's what it's not only that. When we think of mass incarceration and how people of color, African Americans and Latinx and Native Americans are being, forced into prison, and we white-skinned people have all this privilege, and we say, well, I don't want to go to prison. And who does? But why aren't we doing it? Maybe then we would fight more to tear down these prisons and these for-profit prisons. And it isn't. Trump is in charge now. They just, what's her name? Wait a minute. Desiree Ferus, because she was laughing. And they said, oh, well, she didn't get time. She's looking at a $2,000 fine and a year in prison. It wasn't because she was laughing. It was because she disrupted. Oh, that's bullshit. They were mad because she was laughing at Sessions. So it's not. That's a much serious...
Well, this is the kind of arcane. This is really the redundant laws that we have, the draconian laws that we have. I mean, that a person could be... We say we have freedom. She was allowed to be... And this is the thing. Try to get into these meetings. It's not... I mean, it is so regular. It is so... We have such a military authoritarian state. People don't understand. What Trump is bringing to us is a peanut... It's, in fact... based on the model the CIA created. They are infiltrating our government. They are going to wreck every institution. They are going to gut everything. They know they're going to create big poverty. That's why they want a big, heavy military police force, because they know people are going to resist.
They're fascists.
This is a Pinochet controlled style democracy with them constantly in control. They're attempting to do to America what we did to South America.
And Chile.
Chile especially, it is their model. This is definitely what is going on. Chile is there, and that's what gave me the chills about Mike Pence, because he actually believes in re-education camps,
Oh, God.
just like Chile did. Chile did too. I mean, this is why, when I was talking to this guy yesterday, over the weekend, we were doing a community garden planting, and I was telling him about Fukushima, Hanford, the things, they were asking me about my radio show, and I'm like, look, I had no idea 5 years ago that the state of affairs for our planet was so dire. And it's not from climate change and just, quote, man-made things. These are things, nuclear facilities we can stop right now. We can shut them down right now. I believe that they are lying about it gives us 20% energy. They are lying about this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, it's so inconsequential. I mean, Japan shut down all of their nuclear facilities and didn't even skip a beat.
And so did Germany and now Switzerland.
Right.
If you go to Radiation Truth, you can find the list of nuclear power has a big carbon footprint, and nuclear power has another footprint. Go to that list and see what it is. It's as bad as fossil fuels. When Bill McKibben and James Hansen say we need nuclear power to stop the climate crisis, they are lying. We do not need nuclear power to stop the climate crisis, period, over and out. That is just a lie.
It's causing the climate crisis. I mean, you should listen to my interview with Dr. Chris Busby. I mentioned this to him. I'm like, and he was like, well, no, it's not going to warm up the whole ocean. I'm like, look, how can you say that 6 years of nonstop 300,000 tons of radioactive contamination, that's what they're telling us. That doesn't count a lot of other things in the air and emitting just into the Pacific is not affecting the biology of the ocean. How can you possibly say that?
The biology of everything. Nuclear radioactive waste lasts 240,000 years if we're lucky, and usually millions of years, and there is no place to store it. There is no safe place to store it, and there never will be. And my suggestion is that we store it in the front yard and backyard of the White House, everybody in Congress who votes for it, and the SCOTUS. We're almost out of time. I want to say one thing. The Supreme Court of the United States and the Congress has colluded, conspired, considered, whatever word you want to use. I use colluded and conspired, so that supposedly we the people are not supposed to talk about the health, the cancer and the leukemias and other cancers, and how everybody is getting sick from nuclear power. And like Helen says, your cancer doesn't come with a little tag on it that says Fukushima. And if you talk at a hearing about a bill about nuclear power and the health thing, supposedly they can discount everything that was said at that hearing and not vote in the bill. It's called preemption. Read about it. I've been reading about it for 3 years, but I usually say I'm exercising my First Amendment rights, and I am talking about leukemia and other cancers because that is the chase. I don't want to kill our children.
Yeah, and you know what? That is really the chase. And it's not just killing our children. Our children have diabetes. Our children have endocrine problems. Our children have, metabolism, skin, rashes. I mean, their quality of life, many of them, asthma, respiratory problems. I mean, at what point, autism, at what point are we going to just say, you know what? This is not how Earth is meant to be. This is not a healthy civilization, and we're not participating in it. And I love the idea of creating. So I was looking at the congressional calendar. The Congress goes home July 3rd through July 10th. So they'll fly home on the Monday and go back to work on that Monday. They're in session from the 11th on. So from July 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, they'll be in their districts. Or actually, it's all the way from the 29th. I thought that was too short for them. May 29th through, no, I'm wrong. They're out from May 29th through the 2nd of June, and then again from July 3rd to the 10th. So if anybody...
We'll talk about it, Lonnie.
Yes, well, I'm just saying, I think it's a good idea for us to figure out a date during the summertime where we can just go park ourselves. And you know what Heidi Lambert's idea was? This was great. She said this on my radio show. when you go camping, when you go out with your kids for vacationing this summer, go camp on somebody's front door. Go spend the night on somebody's, a congressman's, find their address, spend the night on their front in this, you can go camp somewhere in front of, on the Park Street for one night and just go do it. Heidi Lambert. She said she's an activist from Hanford. And she's like, you know what? Go take your kids out and teach them and go and park yourselves on the governor's mansion and for a night or two and say, you know what? We've got to shut this down. Bring your signs.
Yeah, and park yourself on the State House like in Massachusetts on the grounds and sleep over there overnight.
Yes. Wouldn't that be awesome if we had people all through the summer camping out on the governor's lawns, posting, shut down nuclear power facilities, like just people here and there, you know what I mean? But I wonder if that's illegal now post, we'll have to look into the laws to see how much you could do all any of that, because a lot of states tidy that up.
Risking arrest or not, you have to know. You can't just go do something. You must know. I don't think it can be as organized. It can be organized as quickly as you say. But I want to talk about, I also want to do something that connects the nuclear power and the nuclear weapons and do some nonviolent civil resistance against both of those at the same time. And wouldn't it be nice to do some nonviolent civil resistance against all of it, the coal, the oil, the nuclear, the gas, the fracking, and the DAPL? Does that mean we're over?
No, that means my phone won't ring. Keep speaking. Go ahead. I beg your pardon. Sheila?
Yeah?
Well, we're not over. Why don't you keep finishing this thought? We have about 2 minutes left.
Well, I hope that, Lonnie and I are going to continue this conversation, and if anybody listening wants to join us in this, PM me, certainly, and Lonnie, if you want to have them PM you, say that too, and then we'll get something started. Lonnie, are you here?
Yes, I muted my phone because my office phone, I didn't turn it off right before we could. Well, I kind of have this. My listeners know me with this electronic stuff. Sometimes it messes up. But yes, I would love to have something get going. I think that this is the idea. And if any of our listeners have any ideas, contact us on Facebook. I'm Lonnie Clark. This is Sheila Parks. And, send us messages. You know how to get in touch with me because it is time for us to figure out, actions that we can take to get these. Look what Congress is considering. Proposed Draft Nuclear Waste Policy Amendments Act of 2017 eliminates state and local control of water rights and utilities, eliminates state and local oversight of facility, eliminates requirements for site-specific environmental impact reports, eliminates requirements for monitored retrievable fuel storage for preventing radioactive leaks, eliminates authorizations currently required by Congress and other checks and balances, eliminates requirement to prioritize safety and environmental protections over cost and speed, eliminates requirements to consider transport issues before seeking a site. Some of these eliminations also apply to ISA's bill, H.R. 474, Consolidated Interim Storage. I'm sorry to read all that, but people need to understand the gravity of what's going on.
I agree.
So, thank you, Dr. Parks. This is Dr. Sheila Parks. Thank you for listening with us and being a guest on my show. I am very grateful to have you back on. I'll call you after the show. We'll connect and rebook you. And put your courage feet on, you guys, and please take action because the time is now. We have to organize. We must speak out. We need to save our planet. And I'll talk to you guys later. And these people are relentless. It's time for me to go to work.
Bonnie, thank you. It's been a great pleasure to talk with you.
Okay, you guys. I'll talk with you soon. Thank you.
Time Media Radio with your host, Nick Burnaby.